You ever have one of those conversations where someone says something that sounds well meaning, but also makes you want to scream into the nearest pillow? Yeah, that's how I feel every time I hear someone say, I just want to make sure my donation goes directly to the cause, not to overhead. Overhead. That word has become the nonprofit equivalent of a four-letter word. It's like a boogeyman. The moment it comes up, shoulders tense, voices drop, and everyone starts tiptoeing around the truth. But let's stop tiptoeing, okay? Let's talk about it openly, honestly. Let's put the nonprofit overhead myth under a big spotlight and really look at what's going on. Here's the setup. Somewhere along the line, a narrative took hold that said, if you're a nonprofit and you spend money on anything besides direct service, something's wrong with you. Money for rent? Overhead. Money to pay your staff fairly? Overhead. Money for tech, data systems, insurance, HR, admin, training? And donors have been taught, explicitly or not, that good nonprofits are the ones with the lowest overhead. That if you're spending less on infrastructure, you must be doing something right. But can we just pause for a second and think about how backwards that is? Can you imagine walking into a hospital and asking if they could replace their admin budget to spend more on bandages? Would you ask a school principal if their teachers could do without planning time so more money could go to pencils? Would you want firefighters who don't have up-to-date equipment or a dentist who's working with expired numbing gel because they don't want to spend on overhead? Of course not, because in every other sector, we understand. To provide quality services, you need strong systems and supported people. So why don't we apply that same logic to nonprofits? Now let's make this personal. Think about your own life. Let's say you have a big heart and a gift for helping people. So you start a nonprofit. You want to support youth aging out of foster care, help them find housing, build life skills, access therapy. Amazing, right? But suddenly, you're not just working with youth. You're managing a team, you're writing grants, you're maintaining partnerships, you're tracking outcomes, you're making sure the printer works, the fridge is stocked, the insurance is paid, and everyone's mental health isn't hanging by a thread. And now a funder comes in and says, we love what you're doing. Just make sure you don't spend more than 10% on overhead. And you're like, oh, cool. I'll just divide this dollar 50 ways and somehow create generational change on a shoestring while also writing thank you cards by hand and doing yoga so I don't collapse. Here's the truth. Overhead is not waste. Overhead is what makes the work possible. It's your internet, your electricity, your program coordinator, the person who does your payroll, the team member who makes sure the data is clean and your grant reports don't sound like fiction. It's supervision. It's consultants, the external evaluator, the translation services, the copier, the toilet paper, the trauma training, the legal support. We're throwing staff into high stress, high impact work with no structure, no tools, and no backup. And then wondering why burnout is so high. And let's talk about that. Burnout isn't just some individual failure to manage stress. Burnout is often a system problem. It's what happens when people are carrying mission-level responsibilities with very little support. We can't keep asking nonprofit staff to show up fully, give their whole heart, absorb trauma, meet unrealistic deadlines, hit every reporting metric, and smile while they're doing it for pay that barely covers groceries. That's not sustainability. And yet, the nonprofit sector has been conditioned to believe that struggle equals integrity. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor. Oh, we only have 3 staff, but we serve 700 people a month. Our lights are about to be shut off, but we're just so grateful we're here. We're doing a lot with a little. But what would happen if we actually had enough? What if doing good didn't mean barely getting by? Let's talk about data. Studies from the Overhead Myth Campaign, GuideStar, BridgeSpan, and Charity Navigator all show that some of the highest performing, most impactful nonprofits actually spend more on overhead. Why? Because they invest in people, in systems, and in evaluation. They understand that shortchanging infrastructure leads to burnout, inefficiency, and less impact over time. Nonprofits that only focus on cutting overhead, they might look lean on paper, but it's often the result of underpaying staff, cutting corners on accountability, and doing less than effective work because they can't afford the tools they need. So here's the question we should be asking. Is this organization well equipped to do what they say they're doing? Not how cheaply can you operate, but how well are you operating? And to donors, individuals, foundations, corporations, hear me when I say this. You have power. You get to shape the narrative. You get to break the cycle. When you ask the wrong question, like, what percent of my donation goes to overhead, you reinforce a system that punishes transparency and rewards illusion. Instead, ask better questions. What do you need to thrive? How can I support the full cost of your mission? What are you doing to care for your team? Are your staff being paid equitably? What investments are you making in long-term sustainability? These questions show trust. They show understanding, and they lead to real partnerships. Because the truth is, impact requires investment. You don't build a movement with duct tape and good intentions. You build it with strategy, people, infrastructure, and trust. Let's go a little deeper because this isn't just about budgets and spreadsheets. It's about control. It's about power. The roots of this myth aren't just based in misunderstanding. They're based in a historical power imbalance between funders and nonprofits, between those who give the money and those expected to prove they're worthy of it. It's a dynamic where efficiency is valued over impact, optics over outcomes, and worthiness is tied to suffering. Somewhere along the line, the nonprofit sector got roped into a kind of pageantry. We started believing we had to perform poverty to be seen as legitimate. If your office looked too nice, you were wasting money. If you had a team retreat to address vicarious trauma, that's not direct service. If your staff had decent salaries or health insurance, that must mean you're too big or too bloated. No one ever stops to think that maybe a well cared for team produces better results, that a stable nonprofit is a more reliable community partner, that strong systems actually protect the public's investment. But nonprofits didn't create this myth. We've been trying to work around it for decades. What we need now is a sector-wide shift, especially from donors and funders. Because every time someone says, I want all my money to go to the cause, not overhead, you can gently tell them overhead is the cause. Because without people, policies, and practices behind the scenes, the mission doesn't move. It stalls, it fades, and we all lose. We don't owe funders our exhaustion. We don't owe the community our burnout. And we definitely don't own the mission our silence. What we owe is our best thinking, our full capacity, our vision, our heart, our health. And that can only happen when we are funded to thrive, not just survive. So let's stop whispering about overhead like it's something shameful. Let's stop performing poverty to prove our worth. Let's start building nonprofits that are resilient, well-resourced, and unapologetic about doing what it takes to make real change. The work we do is sacred, and sacred work deserves to be fully supported. Overhead isn't the enemy, it's the foundation. Let's honor it. Let's fund it. Let's stop the myth once and for all.